Navigating the murky waters of inflation is the task at hand for a country with so many prospects, human and natural resources, but with questions being asked of the economy, which the current administration says it has the answer. How is Nigeria faring thus far? What are the challenges and solutions? That's our focus on Special Report. It's been quite some time since the end of fuel subsidy payments. As formally announced, residents of Damaturu, the capital of Yobe State, are still trying to come to terms with the new realities. The deregulation of the downstream petroleum sector, an upward review of the pump price of fuel alongside the weakening value of the naira, led to a rise in the nation's inflation figures, which registered at 22.41% in May 2023. By November, it had risen to 28.20%, which according to the National Bureau of Statistics is one of the highest figures ever recorded. The implication is prices of food items have also risen. Figures released by the National Bureau of Statistics show prices of select food items have also continued to rise year on year, with major staples and groceries recording over 60% increase in prices. While Nigerians across the country have been largely affected by these changes, the World Food Programme believes Northeast Nigeria, which they focus on, will bear a major brunt with up to 4.4 million people in Borno State, Adamawa State, and Yobe State likely to require food assistance in June to August 2024 lean season, and over 1 million people likely to face emergency levels of hunger. Large families may feel more of an impact. Mr. Ado Mohammed, a civil servant, has 4 wives and 29 children. He explains how the inflation has affected the way he feeds his family.
Before the removal of the fuel subsidy, I supported my 4 wives and 29 children very well. But now, 10,000 naira cannot feed my family in a day.
Other residents have similar stories to tell.
These kind of things has affected us, has affected our lives, and even when you look at our businesses, it also affected them, because some of the things that you can get it at your own disposal, maybe at the rate of 500, now it has doubled or tripled. You can get it 1,500 or more.
It really affected our business. If you carefully analyze, before when you come to Motorfag, you want to travel like route to Kano, we pay 2,500. Now it is 5,000. And the fuel now is selling at filling station at the 700 naira per liter.
Others suggest what government could do to ameliorate the situation.
We are in a situation whereby 5,000 naira cannot fill a household of 3. So we are in a serious situation that we need government to put effort in place in order to cohesion this situation as a result of this fuel subsidy removal.
My advice is for the federal government is, to put measures that will ensure that the inflationary pressure is reduced. One of those measures is provision of public transportation. If government can provide public transportation, available throughout the country, the inflationary pressure will be reduced, because individuals and businesses are now finding it difficult to move from one location to the other because of the cost of transportation.
Residents say they are relying on the promises made by the federal government that improved living conditions will ultimately follow this year. Prices of commodities are on the rise, food and non-food items. Especially if one compares the prices that now obtains to last year, there's a great disparity. For instance, a bag of sugar, 50 kilograms, has doubled to 60,000 naira from 30,000 naira last year. A bag of rice also got higher at 53,000 naira from 23,000 naira last year. Cooking gas also took a leap of expense forward to sell for 1,000 per kg. It was 550 naira last year. A bag of wheat flour now goes for over 35,000 naira from 18,000 naira last year. Kano State residents are bothered and lament the inflation.
This economic hardship is really affecting us as citizens of Nigeria in so many ways actually. It is affecting our income, it is affecting our way of living, and it is affecting our family generally. There are a lot of things that we can afford to buy previously, but now we cannot afford to buy them.
The main fear now is how can you be able to afford everything you need for a day. So you hardly get to earn for like a week. Your earning will end up just maybe surviving for a day for you. So the fear of this raising prices every day is one of the most frightening in this condition.
The removal of fuel subsidy exacerbated the hardship, along with the weakening of the naira. The federal government released 2 billion naira to each subnational to cushion the impact, but the result yielded leaves a lot to be desired.
There were a lot of promises, particularly commitment to lift about 100 million Nigerians from poverty. But unfortunately, instead of lifting up 100 million people from poverty, now 130 million have gotten into poverty then. And the poverty we're talking about is not an ordinary one. We're talking about a multidimensional poverty, which means that you are poor in all ramifications. By all definition, you are a poor man.
President Bola Tinubu appeals to Nigerians to bear with the government, while some Nigerians exude optimism.
We suffered during the previous administration, but from what I see under President Bola Tinubu, the future is very promising. This economic hardship is temporary, and you can see the success we are achieving in the fight against banditry. The Abuja-Kaduna road is now safe, so we must support the government in all that it's doing.
The federal government is assuring Nigerians that the situation will improve, and for many, that day can't come soon enough. Meanwhile, an African farmer speaks on food security in Nigeria.
A basket of tomatoes is likely to hit between 80,000 to 120,000. Why? Because climate change and also cost of production. In the north now, we're having reduced food supply. And so that's what warranted one of the governors to say, we won't take food, you know. So around this time, every year, May, June, there's generally a shortage of tomatoes, fresh corn and co across the country. The northerners use irrigation, and they use government irrigation. They stop the waters around March. Okay, so they don't have enough water and prepare to grow rice because the lands they use is like fish pond. So the waters can't flow out, and it destroys things like vegetables. Now, the Southwest, or the South generally, have not leveraged the opportunity of the lands they have and some irrigation facilities. So there's always a major shock in May, June. So this year now, when the South is not preparing and the North is facing insecurity and some challenges also, there's going to be a big challenge. And also, this factor, many people are not paying attention to it. When we began to force merchants to open grains, when we say they were hoarding, they run legitimate businesses, okay? And many of them are indebted to banks. Banks are facilitating those transactions. Now, government, the people in government don't understand that the merchants don't only own the grains, they own the trailers. So when it is time to bring the food in May, June, they may hit back, just like it happened in 2021. So government does not control the logistics. It's those same people that are making losses currently that would want to hike the prices. They control that chain. So understanding information, understanding how the sector works with the right information. Right now, we're not getting it right.
Africa's richest man and industrialist, Alhaji Aliko Dangote, spoke on contributory factors.
One of the major issues that we've had was the naira devaluation that has gone very aggressive up to about 1,900, but right now we're back to almost 1,250, 1,300, which is a good reprieve, and you can see quite a lot of things have actually gone. Even people now, when you go to the market, for example, something that we produce locally, like A4 or whatever, people will charge you more. Why? Because they are paying very high prices on diesel. And what we did, for example, in our refinery, we started selling even diesel at about 1,200 for 1,650. But that can help quite a lot, because if you are transporting locally produced goods, rice and other stuff, you are paying 1,650. Now you are paying 2/3 of that amount to 1,200. It's a lot of difference. You know, people don't know. That can actually help to bring inflation down immediately. And I'm sure when the inflation figures are out for the next month, you see that there's quite a lot of improvement in the inflation rate. So step at a time, and I'm sure the government is working around the clock to make sure that things get much better, because it is in their own interest. It's in the interest of everybody for Nigerians to get things better.
Pro-economic measures as the reform measures, the corrective measures to put the economy on a straight path.
The Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun, speaks on the government side of things. Earlier in the year, he sought to calm nerves by relaying the federal government's disposition correcting macroeconomic indices to boost productivity and engage necessary reform, and starting interventions such as the direct cash payment to 15 million households in Nigeria.
And that is what Mr. President is speaking directly to through the intervention program of direct payments of 75,000 naira each over 3 months. That is 25,000 naira a month to 15 million households. And each household is about 5 people. So that effectively providing funding for 75 million people. Earlier, there was a release from the strategic range. More recently, there was a 42,000 metric ton release from the strategic reserves, and with another 60,000 metric tons to come. This is all in a bid to make sure there's food in the marketplace, but more importantly, the emphasis now is on making sure food, the purchasing power to buy the foods is in the hands of the poor and the vulnerable in a society in particular. There is also an attempt to give artisans, traders, women, youth, nano businesses, as we will call them, to give them all a grant, a non-repayable grant of 50,000 naira under the same intervention program scheme of Mr. President. And in this particular case, there will be digital verification, just like with the direct payments, direct transfer procedure.
The minister associated it with prior liquidity build-up of over an 8-year period without an attendant productivity increase.
Only about 5% of the population have bank accounts that have more than 500,000 in them. So the majority were left out for 8 years. They were on the sidelines, while a small minority enjoyed. That is the major correction being made by Mr. President now. That is the major macroeconomic reform that has been put in place. So therefore, government revenue that was outside the federal government's consolidated revenue fund, that was outside the POS, has been diligently identified, and it is being collected back, being taken from the various pockets it was in, and being brought into the federal system. And going forward, the federal government-owned enterprises have a much stricter regime of cost management, because the government is, through technology, taking its revenue immediately it is earned, rather than waiting for a government enterprise to now remit and comply with the rules.
To make the reform sustainable, which will hopefully reduce inflation, boost food supply, reduce cost of governance, a necessity remains to monitor nation's revenue and expenses.
In addition to a robust revenue system, we're starting from ensuring that oil revenue goes up. Production and sales have gone up from 1.25 million barrels a day when the president assumed office to around 1.65 today, and the intent is to ensure that oil sales remain at that level. Oil production and sales remain at that elevated level, and indeed are increased because it's still below the OPEC quota. On the non-oil revenue side, that is the taxation. There's a commitment to have a 70% increase this very year in the amount of tax revenue collected, not by increasing taxes, but by rationalization, by improvement, by applying technology. The ways and means needs to be brought down by specific actions, and those are being taken in the financial markets. Funds are being garnered, revenue is being raised with a particular intent to pay down the ways and means and have the government's accounts in balance. The government's day-to-day accounts, where it spends from and takes in revenue, to have that imbalance. That's a commitment of the administration, and the strategy and the path to achieving that in the nearest future has been well laid out.
The minister ventured a close working relationship between the monetary arm, the Central Bank of Nigeria, and the fiscal side by the current increase in yields on securities offered in the fixed income market. And while inflation continues to be a concern, the recent position of the Nigeria Labour Congress on minimum wage and the angst over the electricity tariff hike in the harsh economic climate is like water mixed with oil.
Where did the issue of subsidy come in? It's important we look at this, and very instructive. Two, we have to look at the issue of cause and effect. If the cost of inflation, part of it is tariff increase in the electricity sector, and then you have increased tariff, you have collected even the minimum wage from us even before it is approved. That calls for concern by the labor movement. And all these things you mentioned, if we are trying to check the cost of all this cost of living in the country. Now, unknown to people, this issue of tariff increase is determined by inflation and the value of the currency. NEC takes these two major variables, to decide tariff increase. Now, unknown to NEC, the same NEC, each time they increase tariff, it leads to another inflation, which within few months, they will still go back to demand for another tariff increase. And this is happening on and on and on, and there's no way, no control over it. Now, if you check, what actually constitutes the tariff which they are telling us, why is government subsidizing it? At what point is government subsidizing NEPA? Before I knew, we used to have Electricity Corporation of Nigeria, ECR, and Niger Dam Authority that were merged, to be NEPA. And then, because of this problem of challenges of distribution and generation, now we told them that if you are dividing them into 3 companies and you are creating 18 companies from one company, you are creating about 4 EDs in each company multiplied by 18. You are creating double assignments, and you are creating double expenses on the same 3 or 4,000 megawatts. This is the implication. So if you are talking of subsidy, what is this subsidy going into? Are there new power plants? The power plant that was built in 1968, are they buying new gadgets to construct it? What is the new power plant that is costing Nigeria all this big money? These are the challenges. Did they remove all the wires in the country and all the poles? What is this cost implication that we are talking of cost, reflective tariff? What are they all about? Is it just for the salaries of the new EDs and MDs that are scattered all over the world? We have to sit down and look at what constitutes this.
Meanwhile, the president of Nigeria, Bola Tinubu, gives an assurance that inflation will be brought down.
You promised them a good result, didn't you? Yes. That's it. I have to work for it. No magic wand. I campaign on hope. I have to rest on that hope and push for that hope for the joy of every one of us. The economy is looking good. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Yes, we know we have the challenge of inflation. It's okay. We will bring it down. We are re-engineering. Our revenue is getting better, and we are taking our sovereignty and respect back around the world. Not that we have to go there, hire them to do the job for us. We are doing it ourselves. Whatever is happening to us, we have to solve it by ourselves.
Inflation reverberates around the country, and in Cross River State, the sting is also felt with the increase in petroleum products pricing and transportation costs, as well as food prices as traders travel longer distances to buy food to sell to consumers. The city of Calabar is another where residents feel the pinch of the burgeoning inflation.
A cup of rice now 500 naira. Can you see? As against 120 naira in 3 months ago. There are no a tuber of yam now. You can't get a tuber of yam at 2,000 naira. Is it chicken 10,000 naira?
It's really affecting the citizens of Nigeria because the amount of money or the income we used to have before to live a good life doesn't really do anything for us anymore, okay? Like, for example, you see what I'm holding, I just bought onion. And this onion before is 500 naira, but now I bought it for 1.5. So the economy is very harsh on us and it's telling. If you look around, you can see people are frowning. Nobody's buying and smiling.
Presently, I'm not necessarily interested in what they are doing, that the dollar is reducing in rate. But whatsoever they are doing, I pray more grace. They should add more effort.
The governor, Basiotu, has a simple message on thriving in the midst of the challenge, and that is the use of natural resources which Cross River State is endowed with, beneficial for the state and the country.
It's become clear when I look at almost all the assets we already have in place, and then the things which nature has presented to us. I believe that the two coming together would take Cross River State to the next level. I've discussed our various programs with you, our focus and where we're going. That we have about 500,000 hectares in our land bank, which we are ready to move into action very quickly. As a matter of fact, we've started already in terms of land preparations because the rains are almost here. And this year alone, we are looking at about 100,000 hectares.
Investors chime in, declaring interest in putting their money where their mouth is.
We see Cross River as a state that, if well positioned based on your vision, can become a major hub for agribusiness. And I don't mean agriculture, I mean agribusiness, where you're adding value, agro-processing. And that requires investment. It requires partnerships. It requires establishing solid businesses to be able to do that. And we believe that that is an area that we can work together on.
The palpable belief of the Cross River State government for Nigerians to take advantage of homegrown solutions for agriculture and development is pervasive in its element.
When we had the PBR cowpea and we put it in our field, it was a totally different thing. We sprayed twice, the pods were excellent, we harvested, we took there was so much left in the field, even the residue. We harvested the residue which the Nigerian Army farms and ranches used to feed their cattle for a couple of months.
This is the account of a farmer who used modern techniques to improve yield and achieve results against traditional methods to which others had become accustomed. And there are others as well.
I implore everybody here and all the farmers in this country.
This forum concentrated on biotechnology and biosafety measures, converging scientists and experts to discuss how food security can be achieved using scientific methods. The objective is food sufficiency and commensurate income for farmers.
The rapid advancement of biotechnology, particularly genetic engineering, has ushered in a new era of possibilities for enhancing agricultural productivity, improving human health, mitigating environmental challenges, and driving socio-economic development.
The adoption of scientific innovation to boost food production is not without its fair share of criticism, but the proponents stick to their guns.
Through these concerted efforts, we aim to foster an environment where the potential benefits of biotechnology can be realized in a manner that prioritizes safety, sustainability, and public well-being.
After the event, farmers are encouraged to adopt new technologies.
You cannot do without the use of science in whatever form, either mechanization or innovation. You have to do it and use all combination of technologies, not just 1, 2, or 3, or not just only biotechnology, but any other technology that can actually enhance that food security that we have been yearning for.
With the federal government objective of food security in view, there is a consensus in this gathering that one of the ways to do this is the adoption of scientific tools. The effectiveness of any administration can be judged by many parameters, and the economy is certainly a leading test. As 2024 continues on its interesting trajectory, it's hoped that all Nigerians will be beneficiaries of realizing the country's full potential. For a special report, I'm Olumide Macaulay. Thank you for watching.